what I'm doing these days is kind of helping a lot of people. Kind of in a way, it's like a mission, help other people learn this stuff and to get to financial freedom. Because there's a lot of good, hardworking people out there, right? They're just doing the wrong thing. There's a saying out there, your network is your net worth. The people that you hang out with, that's where you're going to get to know who to work with, what deals to go into, where to invest. It is a big networking thing. But I would say until your net worth becomes at least $250,000, I think you're all on your own, buddy. You just got to grind it and save along the way.
Because of the pandemic, then a lot of tenants just couldn't pay or would ask for forgiveness or would move out altogether. I wonder, how did the pandemic affect your business though?
Normally, we're at 97% collections. So that means out of 100 people, a few people don't pay. That's just how it is. Through the pandemic, maybe it dipped down into the low 90s at the very worst. But we're still making money. We're still in the black if we can collect, more than 60%, 55% of the money.
90% is amazing.
I mean, that's why we invest in workforce housing, right? For average Americans that are paying, here they pay $800 to $1,200 a month for rent. People making 30 to 50 grand a year for clientele.
Paying a lot for their rent.
Yeah, usually we are at like a third of, the general rule of thumb is a third of your income goes to housing.
You mentioned about syndications and placements. I watched some of your YouTube videos, and those are like, I'm not familiar with those words. What do you mean by private placements and syndications? Can you expound on those?
Yeah. Don't worry, man. I didn't know about them until recently either. Right? I was just picking up individual properties by myself, but then I realized the way that the wealthy do it, they pool their money together to go after a bigger property, which is out of reach out of most unsophisticated mom and pop investors. And they have one person or a few people run it, the pros, essentially. This way, they're able to diversify over dozens of deals or properties. This is a model called syndication where you're going to have a bunch of investors pool their money together, and it's operated by the one central group. These are kind of what is called the country club deals.
So you also invest in those things, but that's real estate still, right?
Right. But you can syndicate. The model of syndication, you can do anything. You can do ground up development. You can do stabilized apartments. You can do a restaurant. You can do a beer brewery, right? You can do a gym. Anything that you can use the model, pool money together of investors, and then power somebody's business plan. I like real estate because real estate is probably one of the easiest things that you can do, right? Out of the whole world of business plans and operations, real estate's one of the easiest. People need a place to stay. There's not much to it, but restaurants, these business ideas, they flop all the time.
So have you ever ventured into like build and rent, something like that? Or do you just buy properties that are existent already, probably renovated already, and then rent it out?
Most times we like to buy existing properties and then fix it up a little bit, partially because we know we can see what the profit and loss statement was for the last 12 to 24 months. So we see it running at this, and when we buy it, we kind of know where it's going to be, right? We got the last 24 months profit and loss statements, and here you have to obviously verify financials, but you're not supposed to falsify your record. Everybody fudges things a little bit, but that's to be expected. The way we look at it is, now we can kind of project what it was and what it should be in the future. And what we like to do is we like to add a little bit of renovation to each unit new flooring, new appliances, but we don't get into big, heavy things like countertops or cabinets. That allows us to bump the rents up maybe $100 to $50 per unit. Not much, maybe 10% across the board. This way, we're able to cash flow, while we're doing this. So that's why we like this model for ourselves.
So you mentioned you got like 24 months of history, which means that the property was also being rented out before you bought the property. Is that right?
Right. The reason we typically buy properties with the owners had some kind of problem, as opposed to the property has a problem. Usually the owner, they're getting older, they just want to retire, they want to liquidate the asset. Maybe they had a death in the family, maybe they're dying, maybe they want to consolidate. There's always a reason why they would like to exit.
All of these things, you're pretty much doing it by yourself, don't have a partner, started by yourself. What is going to be your end game? Are you like I'm assuming you're kind of semi-retired right now? Is that right?
Yeah, sort of, I guess. I mean, I'm still working my ass off, right?
Oh, really?
But no, I have partners. I mean, definitely have partners. I don't do this all alone. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Endgame, I mean, I like to educate, do my education platform for people to learn these type of secrets of the wealthy that I never had access to when I grew up. There's a lot of hardworking Americans out there, and there's hardworking people out there that they went to college, they studied hard, they get a good professional job, yet they find themselves, the only option is to invest in some kind of 401k or government sponsored plan that just suck. I realized this when I bought a rental property, a simple rental property. It wasn't the best one, it was my first. And I realized I made 20 to 30% return on my money. And then I looked over at my 401k that I was supposed to put all my money into, and that was only making maybe 8%, what they say. And I'm like, what the heck? Why is this making like 4 or 5 times as much as this? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. What happened to all my money? Eventually, I figured out what it was, right? It's, the world is kind of built on corporatocracies where they kind of make money off.
Got it. And if you listeners are wondering what's 401k, it's like SSS here in the Philippines, where you place your money there and you're promised like a retirement or pension fund by the government. You guys know how that's working out right now with the pandemic.
Figure out what you can do if you invested it or made your own business, and what does that give you, right? Numbers don't lie.
You look like a guy who looks at numbers and just you're a straight shooter, and you're an engineer. A lot of people just don't put in the hard work of looking at the numbers and computing like what you mentioned, a 1% purchase to rental ratio, rental revenue ratio. Now I'm going to be talking about your secrets of the wealthy. You mentioned secrets of the wealthy earlier. I know you have an entire program for this, so I'm not going to ask you a lot about it, but if you could indulge us a short summary. Of course, you're not going to give everything away, you don't have to, but just a short summary. What are the secrets of the wealthy?
Yeah, I mean, it's counterintuitive things, like not buying a house to live in. Don't invest in, the retail financial products, and things that you're captive in a retirement plan, and investing in things that make sense, that give you cash flow. You also combine different tax and legal strategies there too. But ultimately, it's building your network with other high-paid, high net worth investors. Most of us in our group are doctors, lawyers, engineers, accountants. We kind of stick together in an investing tribe. Yeah, I think I would urge everybody to do that. Find yourself people who are interested in this stuff and on the trajectory upward.
I'm wondering about that tribe. Are those people from all over the world, or just there in the US where you can meet physically?
Mostly in the US and Canada at this point. I don't know how to speak any other language. Principles are very similar. Anywhere you go, save at least 10% of how much you make and put it to stuff that makes you more money. Don't buy stupid stuff.
You mentioned not buying your own house to live in. I'm just not everyone knows the reason why. Our listeners probably don't know why, because here in the Philippines, people would just say just buy your house, and then you have a lot of stuff figured out for you already if you got your own house. Why are you saying that you shouldn't buy your own house to live in?
Because when you put your money in a house, all it's doing is going up with the pace of inflation. But when you invest, you're getting cash flow and you're also keeping up with the pace of inflation. So that cash flow is important, and the tax benefits you're getting along the way. And people when they buy their house, they have to put a big lump sum down on as a down payment. And what I see is instead of people doing that in America, they could have bought 4 or 5 rental properties right off the bat that produce that income for them right away. And they compound their problems by having that big house. Now they have a big mortgage payment that they're saddled by, and that takes away their cash flow. Essentially, that cash flow is kind of oxygen, gives them options, and they give it up, they lose it by buying that house to live in. I'm not saying to never buy a house to live in, but I think you gotta invest first. But hey, man, do the numbers yourself. Figure out what's going to happen, right? I mean, we know what's going to happen. Just follow what your mom and dad did. It'll take them damn near 40, 50, 60 years to get where they are now.
So what would be a good, and then this I'm asking for myself, what would be a rent to value ratio? You mentioned anything above 1%, but what is, kind of like number that you yourself are looking at and would say this is really good deal?
Often when your rent to value ratios go too high, you're probably looking in a war zone area. You're going to invest in the hood, and obviously you don't want that. So there's a sweet spot, and you have to go figure out what that is based on where you're looking at. This is where you have to get your own data points, figure this out for yourself. There's a great book out there, Millionaire Real Estate Investor by Gary Keller, has a lot of fundamentals. I would suggest reading that. It kind of talks all about this.
Is there any reason why, and I'm sure you have, but can you expound on why 1% is so important?
Well, the 1% rent to value ratio, like when you kind of break down how much money you make and then all the expenses. So if you have $1,000 of income, right, the rent per month that you bring in, $100, 10% is going to go to repairs, 10% is going to go to your property manager, another 10% is going to go to vacancies or other issues, another 10% you got to put away in the bank for CapEx, to replace the roof, the plumbing, some big things later on, and then obviously you're going to have to pay the mortgage. So when you run your numbers that way, there's very little bit, there's at least only a couple $100 here in this little theoretical answer. And that's at the 1% ratio. You go any less, you're going to be losing money.
Diving a little bit on the technical side. So I have no experience, obviously, in investing in real estate and getting property managers. So all of those little bit of headaches of repairs and capital expenditures on piping, roof repairs, will the property manager be the one handling all of that?
Yep, they will. I don't know how to fix anything. I don't know how to do eviction. I don't know how to do any of that stuff. All I know is how to save my money and go out and find properties, and when it looks good, I buy it. And I get a property inspector to inspect it for me, and I get my property manager to tell me if it's in a good place. And I also have a broker there to help me. Between these three people on my team, I'm trying to find a good investment. People can go to my website, simplepassivecashflow.com, Google Analyzer on the website, and they can just download the Analyzer for free.
Really?
And if you're good at Excel or you're halfway decent at it, you know how to open it up, you'll figure it out, right? You'll see how these breakdowns happen. It's not rocket science, right? It's not like running a restaurant. It's not like running a business. This is simple stuff, right?
You make it sound actually.
It takes practice, right? And that's like a lot of these secrets of the wealthy. It's very simple stuff. And that's why the URL is simple passive cash flow. Really simple, right? But most time, I think it frustrates me because there's so much bad financial advice out there, right, that people follow. That these simple things that were buried underneath that the wealthy are secretly doing, quietly doing, average people just don't do it. And that's what ultimately hinders them to getting to where they want to be.
So I'm gonna go ahead and ask you, because that's what's mostly available and being pushed here. You don't mind investing, for example, in condo units. It just depends on the value to rent ratio for you. Is that right?
Right. Condo units I don't really like because you're probably not going to hit that rent to value ratio, and condo units typically have homeowners association fees, HOAs, and you have to deduct that off of the rent, and then do your 1% rent to value ratio calculation. So when you include that in, it's a no bueno. And to layer on top of that, at that point it doesn't even make any sense. But this one makes it even more ridiculous. Why not to do it? Is in a lot of these HOAs, you give up control. You're at the mercy of a bunch of amateurs running a small business, and then giving you an assessment. And sometimes these guys can be like, yeah, you know that condo you brought? You can't rent it out now. Sorry, buddy. Stay away from HOAs for the most part. And plus, it's like, I mean, this is the reason why we go to large apartments, because a lot of investors, they think buying a condo is a good idea because that's all they can afford. Yeah, everyone's got to start somewhere, but you try and swim upstream. Condos are cheap. Every amateur investor's trying to buy it, right? You got to kind of get away from the low-level competition.
I'm wondering right now, you mentioned that you work your ass off. I was going to ask you what you spend most of your time on now that you're semi-retired. And I think I'm going to go ahead and go through with that question. What do you do now?
I don't know, man. I don't surf. I like to work out. But yeah, I mean, the working out is important because that's how you're able to kind of keep pushing it.
How do you feed your mind more?
I feel like what I'm doing these days is kind of helping a lot of people. Kind of in a way, it's like a mission to help other people learn this stuff and to get to financial freedom. Because there's a lot of good, hardworking people out there, right? They're just doing the wrong thing. They're going against the grain, and they don't. So the work that I do I do get enjoyment out of it because I know that it's benefiting a lot of people. And I think whatever you do, you got to figure out some way to kind of, how to benefit the world in some way.
And Lane, what kind of people can join this program of yours?
Simple Passive Cash Flow is mainly made for working professionals, those people with good salaries, where their highest and best use is keeping working at their day job, or successful entrepreneurs who created a strong business. Their highest and best use is in their business, but they like to invest passively on the side. Real estate is a great investment option, especially for endgame strategy. Right? Once you've sold your company, you have a lump sum of money, and you would like to invest it passively. Because again, real estate is a hard asset. The reason why we like it so much is it preserves capital.
If you had one big piece of advice to struggling entrepreneurs out there, or maybe to investors who have invested and because of the pandemic, their first or second investment kind of turned on their heads and it's just not good for them, what would it be? What would your advice be?
Well, if they went and made a mistake, figure out what the mistake was, and maybe they should have had a mentor or somebody kind of looking over their shoulder to make sure they don't do anything stupid. You pay one way or another. You pay it on the front end or you pay it in mistakes, right? That's just how it is. And then kind of going back to somebody who's struggling right now, maybe you're just not cut out for this shit, man. How many times do I see entrepreneurs that really shouldn't be doing the entrepreneur thing? And I go back to, what is your skill set? What is it about you that gives you an advantage to do whatever you're doing? If you don't have anything, you probably shouldn't be doing it. That you're going to work harder than anybody else. I don't want it takes you so far. You have to have some kind of innate ability in what you're doing.
And Lane, lastly, where can people find you aside from your website? We're going to have that in the show notes, smartpassivecashflow.com. Where else can people find you?
Yeah, they can go to URL is simplepassivecashflow.com, or they can check me out at Simple Passive Cashflow Podcast on iTunes, Google Play. Where people are trying to pick up their first few single-family home rentals, I would probably listen to the first 8 or so. Credit investors, I've kind of moved to syndications later on in the podcast journey lately. So for those people who are more interested in that, maybe skip over the first few dozen. So yeah, thanks for having me, Sean. Really appreciate it.
No worries. I learned a lot from you today. I'm sure my listeners will. If you guys have learned a lot, please do check out Lane's website. He has the podcast. He's also on YouTube. He might not have been able to share that earlier, but he is on YouTube if you want to watch his podcasts on YouTube, and he does have that PowerPoint presentation there, which I think is fantastic. Go check it out. Just search for his name, or we're gonna have that on the show notes. Go to leadershipstack.com. All the links are there. You'll find his episodes. That's Lane Kawaoka. Please do check him out. Lane, thank you so much for being on the show today.